Homophobe. Transphobe. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and the rest of you. This story just gets better and better. So, I want to start off with explaining something that's kind of interesting. The fact that I have a certain background is why I'm even doing this. Well, why bother, right? There's other people out there. One of the advantages is that a lot of people will follow alternative news sources, like I do, and other people follow crypto, but not very many people follow both. And as I pointed out in my last video, the biggest thorn in the side right now of global fascism, the World Economic Forum, the EU, the Democratic Party here in the United States, and the neocons, is all the populist movements, among them which Donald Trump is probably the most effective, maybe. But actually, there's Nigel Farage, and I've named a number of others in Europe, throughout Europe, that are just doing fabulously well also. And I've told you, and I know a lot of you liberals won't believe me, that Donald Trump is very popular in Europe. I know that upsets a lot of you. So anyways, also my background in ethnomusicology, believe it or not, this will come more to bear a little bit more in the future, my music and humanities course. Keep in mind that one of the major figures in the Frankfurt School, which is one of the most nefarious organizations that ever came on the planet, really, they have polluted our university system completely. One of the major guys in that school that came to the United States after they left Germany was Theodor Adorno, who was an ethnomusicologist. See, there's a lot of insights to be gained by understanding the relationship of music and humanity. But again, that's down the road. But of course, my background in Cuba helped a lot also. My eyes were open even as a very young man because I've already seen it. So, excuse me. When you look at the cryptosphere and you look at the alternative news, you can put things together. Because right now, cryptocurrency, again, is one of the biggest threats to global fascism. And that's why they're hitting it so hard. I mentioned that in the last video. And why they're trying to replace all cryptocurrencies with digital, what they call central bank digital currencies. Now, that's not really crypto. However, it is digital. So anyways, with that little intro, let's get on with, this is Jolly Scholar 888, and this is dispatch number 12. Social media, big tech, and government collusion. The Intercept article and the real source, which is an interesting fellow, very interesting, Dr. Shiva Ayyudurai. So let's go. Okay, we start off with the fact that last week, Tucker Carlson covered a story by the news outlet called The Intercept. The Intercept was co-founded by Glenn Greenwald, a frequent guest on Tucker's show. Greenwald left The Intercept a few years ago and now lives in Brazil. Now, this is all relevant. So he was not a part of the discussion. Now, The Intercept, they claim, this is a news outlet, we'll talk more about it, they claim that there were regular meetings between Twitter and Facebook executives with government agencies to discuss censorship. Well, as we're finding out now, this is more than true, right? This is now obviously true. Notice that just this week, Twitter is now coming up with the same conclusions, especially in regards to Tim Baker, the former FBI operative who had to leave the FBI because of his role fabricating the Russian collusion hoax. But from the FBI, he went directly to work for Twitter. He was censoring what Elon was releasing to the public. He was in content management, if you can believe that. From the FBI, fired because of the Russian collusion hoax he was perpetuating and got caught. The FBI knew he was doing it. They just had to get rid of him because it came to light, that's all. And he goes straight from there to Twitter. Talk about the revolving door that used to happen, right, with the military-industrial complex. He was also censoring the very materials that Elon Musk was revealing to the public. So when Elon realized this, he fired Baker and postponed publishing more materials while he dealt with Baker. Sorry. None of this is in the Intercept interview, and now in the last few days, including some revelations last night, this is becoming obviously true and far more extensive than the Intercept even suggested. And that's going to be important. So the Intercept went on to claim that the backdoor channels had been created so that the DNC and the Biden administration could send instructions and requests, including lists of people's accounts that needed to be silenced, directly to Twitter. Hunter Biden's laptop was, of course, a major subject for censorship. We were all told that the laptop was Russian collusion by the FBI. In fact, Baker would have been one of those people, right? But it wasn't just the FBI. Many other organizations joined in on that. And this turned out to be a blatant lie that has had enormous consequences in the 2020 election. The Intercept claimed that their information came largely from a leak within the DHS, a leak to the Intercept. However, the Intercept also mentioned in passing that a previous lawsuit had opened the doors or contributed to these revelations. But they didn't say what lawsuit. So enter Redacted Inc. Now, I talked about them in the last video. I highly recommend them. They're really doing some great work. It's Natalie and Clayton Morris. And they did an live interview with Dr. Shiva Ayyudurai. This is going to turn out to be an extremely interesting person, because the lawsuit that was mentioned by the Intercept, but without mentioning Shiva Ayyudurai's name, was in fact the lawsuit that he initiated. And he's initiated two major lawsuits, actually. The lawsuit against CSIA, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure, and the DHS, Department of Homeland Security. And here we have that. This is the lawsuit, or these are the people. This is Ayyudurai right here, Shiva Ayyudurai. And this is the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Agency, and also the DHS was listed in the lawsuit. So we go on. In 2020, following his unsuccessful run for the Senate against Elizabeth Warren, Dr. Shiva Ayyudurai claims that Secretary of State William Galvin ordered the destruction of electronic images of ballots. Electronic images. Ayyudurai claimed Galvin coerced Twitter to delete plaintiff's tweets, claiming that the defendant unlawfully destroyed Republican primary ballots. In other words, Shiva tweeted that this was going on, and his tweets were completely scrapped, and he was deplatformed completely. Ayyudurai claimed that Galvin coerced Twitter to delete plaintiff's tweets, claiming the defendant unlawfully destroyed the Republican primary ballots, as I said. Ayyudurai accused Michelle Tassinari, who's an election official in Massachusetts, of deleting 1 million electronic ballots during the 2020 Massachusetts primary and general election, and filed a lawsuit against Galvin and Tassinari to that effect. Galvin and Tassinari have denied the claim, noting the state's ballots are paper. Now see how disingenuous this is? The paper ballots are not what is counted. What is counted are the digitized images, exactly what Shiva said. You probably know that little adage by Mr. Stalin. Doesn't matter who votes, it matters who counts the votes. Okay, so let's move on. Now, the story with the Intercept gets kind of interesting here. Shiva accuses the Intercept of basically stealing his story 2 years after the fact. The Intercept mentioned that a lawsuit ignited a probe into the government and high-tech platform collusions, but the Intercept focused on what they claimed was a DHS leak to their team. But Ayyudurai claims that there was no such DHS leak at all, that all of the revelations came from his lawsuit. The specific program was called the Twitter Trusted Partner Collaboration. And now we know this. Elon has discovered the same thing. This is that's what I said there. A backroom portal. These are Shiva's words. I really like this, the way he's phrased it. Quote, a backroom portal that allows the government to do an end run around the First Amendment. Now, this is exactly what's now been brought up, if you've been following the news, that people are accusing the government of using private companies to do the dirty work, right? It's not against the First Amendment for the private company to censor things, if they act as a publisher in that sense, but it is against the law for the government. So the government simply gets the private company to do it. So now the obvious question is, Who is Shiva Ayyudurai? He's a very bombastic, interesting, even a kind of a sensation-seeking person. I've gathered that from a little I've looked into him. But he's really interesting, and he's very accomplished. So let's take a look. Ayyadurai was born in India. He holds 4 degrees from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, including a PhD in biological engineering. He claims to have invented email as a high school student in New Jersey in the late 1970s, which has been widely disputed. The going theory is that Roy Timlin did. I don't know many people that support Shiva's claim on this, but I don't know that much about it anyways. One of his mottos is "Be educated or be enslaved." I'll have a link to his website. It's very interesting. This is on the front page. It shows he's very good with technology. He's very good with health sciences, and he's also kind of a philosopher, activist, but completely in the opposite of the kind of woke activist. He's the complete opposite of that. And he did something really interesting that I liked called learned helplessness, where he looked at a couple of studies, well, a number of studies that have been done on animal experiments that then progressed to human experiments. And what he claims is that learned helplessness has been deliberately instilled throughout much of American society. And this is something he's really passionate about addressing. He's claiming that Americans are largely becoming learned helpless, or they've acquired learned helplessness. So this learned helplessness, what he's saying, basically, it's not just the welfare system. It's actually becoming more and more part of the general mainstream of American society, of American behavior. Interesting. Another motto of his is truth, freedom, and health. In his 2018 campaign against Senator Elizabeth Warren, Ayyadurai appeared in a live stream with Matthew Collusion, who was photographed holding a torch and marching in the 2017 Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, which had been it's been widely condemned as supporting white supremacy. I don't know much about this story, except I do know that he actually plays the race card on his benefit, because he's brown, again, person of color, whatever that means. But he's extremely conservative and libertarian, so it kind of annoys me when I see him play that card. What he was doing with this guy, Matthew Cullen, I have no idea, but he does a lot of sensational things, apparently. So his campaign slogan in 2018 was, quote, "Only a real Indian can defeat a fake Indian," unquote. That's a reference to Warren's claim that she is of Cherokee descent. You remember all that, right, Miss Pocahontas? So Ayyadurai has been accused of using social media to spread misinformation about the coronavirus pandemic, including posting that the virus has been spread by the, quote, deep state, unquote, and can be treated with vitamin C. He accused Dr. Anthony Fauci of being a, quote, deep state plant, unquote, and called for him to be fired. Well, I don't know about the vitamin C part, but everything else right on target as far as many of us are concerned. So, now, you have a little bit of background with him. Let's go back to the Intercept story. According to Shiva, the Intercept DHS leaks, Department of Homeland Security, is plagiarism, the leaks. Manipulation and hijacking by the Intercept of Dr. Shiva's work in order to intentionally conceal Intercept boss Pierre Omidyar, that's this fellow right here, his role in creating the government and big tech censorship infrastructure that Dr. Shiva discovered 2 years ago in his historic 2020 federal lawsuit, Ayyadurai versus Twitter et al. I may have been pronouncing that Ayyudurai, it's Ayyadurai. Now, Pierre Omidyar is this fellow right here. And according to Shiva, he does own the Intercept. But according to Shiva, he's the one that created the infrastructure, this entire, what I call a labyrinth of portals. We're going to look into this more. It's extremely elaborate. And according to Shiva, the same person who owns the Intercept, Pierre Omidyar, also created the entire backdoor portal infrastructure, of which everybody's talking about. Except that nobody is talking about how large it is and how widespread, because the Intercept article really doesn't go that far at all. And here's what he says about that. DHS leaks is a purposeful dribble. That's his own term, dribble. A limited version of Dr. Shiva's work to deceive people into believing that they have gotten the truth, when in fact it is a cover-up to conceal the larger truth, which is far more damaging. In the Intercept interview, they're simply revealing that the FBI, the DHS, have some connections there with Twitter. They meet with them weekly and things like that. And then, indeed, they are, I don't know, coercing them, but advising them or discussing censorship. Definitely telling them, highly suggesting that they censor. Right? And that we all know now is coming out to be way more true than anyone thought even just a week ago. But the article and the interview with Tucker does not talk at all about this. And this is the part that Shiva is saying that the Intercept now coming out with this article, coming out with these interviews, is actually an attempt to go like a front run and cover this up. Make everyone think they're seeing the truth and there's no more to see here. Because Ayyadurai, who's Shiva accuses of having created this infrastructure, he owns the Intercept. So naturally, these leaks appear out of nowhere from the DHS, just so happen to go to the Intercept. All right. Shiva claims that the Intercept is itself a front that purposely published the piece in order to limit the implications only to the DHS, when in fact, that's only the tip of the iceberg. I have a number of links below that you can go look at the Shiva's story completely on his website. So now let's move on. What Shiva claims to have uncovered over 2 years ago, 2020, is that the entire U.S. security system is tied into this massive backdoor surveillance and communication systems online portal. It connects the big tech giants with the government intelligence agencies, all of them. So this is not a question of an FBI agent calling them up or meeting with them, even like what Zuckerberg revealed. You know, they'll come to the office or they'll have a talk with them. No, this is a massive infrastructure that's set up that this communication is immediate. And as we're finding out with the Twitter leaks right now, they're not leaks, what Elon is publishing, the information goes to Twitter. We want this person, this person, this person. We want this subdued. We want this one eliminated. We want this one scrapped. We want this one platformed to whatever degree that they want the information suppressed. And it happens immediately. Right? That's not done by having to go through the trouble of phone calls and meetings. This is done backdoor portal. So let's see. We're going to talk about Elon Musk. Is he going to actually come to this conclusion? Again, Shiva has this wonderful phrase for it. A backroom portal that allows the government to use big tech and do an end run around the First Amendment. Everyone's talking about that now. The government can't go against the First Amendment, right? But if they get a private company to do it, that's kind of, it alleviates them of the sin, so to speak. In other words, they're not doing it, the private company's doing it. They're a publisher, they can do what they want. They're simply suggesting to them to do it. Okay, we're going to hold that thought because what we're going to see now is way more than that. So, let's move on here. Go back to this picture. Interestingly, Shiva claims that the owner of the Intercept, Pierre Omidyar, is one of the architects of the entire portal itself, as I just said. He claims the portal is a large digital construction. The meetings between the FBI, DHS, and other agents were digital and immediate. This is exactly what we're seeing now. Censorship requests were immediately complied with, exactly what we're seeing now. Requests made by many government agencies, not just one, but the entire surveillance, all the agencies in the surveillance system, the intelligence network. These requests could be made by any of them. Shiva displays all the government agencies and operators in this elaborate diagram, the one we were looking at. The same people appear over and over, by the way. That's going to be interesting. Now, how true is this? I can't say for sure. I mean, the diagram is pretty elaborate with a whole lot of names and peoples, and I can't say for sure. But so far, everything he has suggested was true from that diagram is playing out right before us with Elon Musk and revealing the Twitter tweets. What is certain is that the Intercept article does in fact talk about the communication, but not about the portal, even though they refer to a lawsuit as being one source. And of course, we know what that lawsuit was. The lawsuit that they briefly referred to was in fact Dr. Shiva's lawsuit back in 2020 and another one in 2017. But they did not disclose that fact or the rest of the implications that are far more damaging. Tucker Carlson also does not bring this up in the interview with The Intercept, even though Ayyadurai claims that he had sent multiple emails to Tucker back in 2020, exposing in full detail the entire scope of the government big tech collusion. So Ayyudurai, a Republican, was running for senator against Pocahontas, which he calls him Fucker Carlson. And he says Carlson did nothing. Now, had Carlson brought this information out back then, would that have helped Ayyudurai in his run against Pocahontas? I don't know. But at any rate, it's curious that Tucker Carlson did nothing, but he did have this interview with The Intercept. And interestingly enough, Greenwald just happens to be a friend and frequent guest on his show. I don't know. So, Ayyudurai also claims that he has sent much of this information, all this information, to Greenwald, who, by the way, also said nothing. Okay, so you've gotten a little insight into Ayyadurai. And I know there's a couple of times I've said Ayyudurai. It's a bad habit. It's Ayyadurai. And interesting person, as you can see, probably deservedly controversial. However, he's proving to be right. Everything going on in Twitter now is proving Ayyadurai right. But will Elon prove that the entire story is right? That is, this massive infrastructure, because that's going to blow so many doors open. So the next question, of course, is who is this guy, Pierre Omidyar, the owner of The Intercept, and who Shiva says created this labyrinth of portals? Well, he was born Parviz Murad Omidyar. He's French-Iranian. He was born in France. He's of Iranian background, and I guess he changed his name Parviz to Pierre. Pierre. It's a nice French name. He's a technology entrepreneur, software engineer, and philanthropist. Now, the word philanthropist you have to see in terms of, is Klaus Schwab a philanthropist? Is Bill Gates a philanthropist? No, they're ideologues masquerading as philanthropists. He's the founder of eBay, for those of you who didn't know. I had come across that sometime in my past, the name rang a bell, but he is the founder of eBay, where he served as chairman from 1998 to 2015. Omidyar and his wife Pamela founded Omidyar Network. That's a whole system, like what Klaus Schwab has done, of related agencies, related nonprofits with the same purposes, right? The woke insanity. And we'll look at that in a minute. Forbes ranked Omidyar as the 24th richest person in the world, 2021, with an estimated worth of $21.8 billion. All of this will become important because he's doing things that only a certain kind of person could possibly be in a position to do. So let's look here. Okay, this is one of his big, it's an NGO, right, non-governmental agency. It's called the Democracy Fund, Creating an Open and Just Democracy, right? It already smells. Democracy Fund is an independent and nonpartisan private foundation that confronts deep-rooted challenges in American democracy. Let me guess, structural racism, while defending against new threats. Donald Trump, perhaps? Since 2014, we have made grants of more than $150 million in support of those working to strengthen our democracy, like Nancy Pelosi wants to do, our sacred democracy. Don't you love it when they use terms like that? Their sacred democracy. Since 2014, we have made grants of more than $150 million in support of those working to strengthen our democracy through the pursuit of a vibrant and diverse public square, free and fair elections. This is going to get good. Effective and accountable government, and a just and inclusive society. Who does this remind you of? Sam Bankman-Fried, right? This site, if you go to the site, I'll have the link below, is so completely surfeit with these, I love Bankman-Fried's term, shibboleths. These shibboleths are everywhere. I mean, you saw it's bad enough in this opening paragraph, but I mean, the entire website is just nothing but one shibboleth after another. Is he as cynical as Sam Bankman-Fried? I would say he has to be. Otherwise, you couldn't put together something this cliche-ish and actually believe what you're saying. Well, that's my take. And this gets even a little bit more sinister, because the other one could just be seen as a philanthropist, right? An NGO. But this gets to the heart. It's called the Center for Internet Security, CIS, making the connected world a safer place. Now, if he's as nefarious as he's starting to look, this ought to really cause you to pause for a moment, right? Making the connected world a safer place. Is that why he created this entire, supposedly, allegedly created this entire infrastructure, this digital labyrinth of portals between the entire surveillance system of the United States government and most of the big tech companies in America? But it's going to go global, okay? So right there. So we just saw the ideological with the, let me go back this just a second, right? The ideological, Democracy Fund, completely ideological. And then we get to this one, which is, this is technology here. So he's combining ideology with technology, exactly what he's good at, both of them, right? So let's go on. Now, one of the things that you'll notice, and that's right here, is that Twitter is a, favored partner, the official partner. We've just discovered that now. Remember when Ayyadurai put this out, this was a number of years ago. Nobody ever heard of Twitter being an official partner with the United States government. But here he has it right there. Here are the three ladies. These three ladies right here, they appear in the lawsuits. This is the, what's her name? This is Michelle Tassinari, Amy Coleman, and then this lady here, Miss Cardile, she is one of the, what's her title? General Counsel at Twitter. Right, the General Counsel. It means that she's their major lawyer, and she has a lot to do also with content management as well. So, National Association of Safe Elections. That's what NASID is. National Association of Safe Elections. Now, what's interesting is that Tassinari is actually employed by the state of Massachusetts, but this is a national company. A national organization. And then these are tied to global organizations, as you're going to see. So here's these three ladies. You say, okay, they're just three ladies. Two of them are working there. They work for NASID. One of them works for Twitter. But it keeps going. Oh, and back here is Twitter. What he's saying is that Twitter was censored him at behest of these ladies. That's what the lawsuit was about. And here the government agencies are. They're everywhere. So let's take a little closer look. Okay, so here's the three ladies that we're going to talk about a little bit more because they were very instrumental. Shiva's lawsuit went against this lady, which is Miss Michelle Tassinari. This is Amy Cohen. They both work for NASID, and they were both involved both in the primary and I think in also the senatorial race in Massachusetts. So they're located in Massachusetts, but they're members of this national organization as well. And then, of course, we have here, this is Miss Cardile, and she is basically the head lawyer of Twitter. Now, they claim they didn't know each other, and part of the lawsuit was that they proved that Shiva proved that they did in fact know each other, and that they had been invited to speak at something that she sponsored, something like that. But they claimed they didn't know each other, and Shiva proved that they actually did know each other. Okay, so this is what happens when you get on the bad side of these ladies. Starting on September 25th, 2020, Dr. Shiva was locked out for nearly a month during the U.S. Senate campaign, right? This is similar to what happened with Trump when the entire laptop scandal, the criminality of it, was completely suppressed by the same agencies, all the agencies, the FBI and everybody, just as the campaign was, just as the elections were coming near, just as the campaign was closing, which was a critical time to do that. So he lost. Would he have won otherwise? I don't know. But then on February 1st, 2021, he was completely deplatformed. And of course, as we know, Trump was deplatformed later on after the January 6th. Tassinari used the above infrastructure, which she had architected. She did not architect that. If we're thinking the large labyrinth of portals, that's not what she architected. What this is referring to is that she's the one that architected the design to silence Dr. Shiva when he revealed Tassinari's emails. But she admitted that she had deleted the digital ballot images, a violation of federal law 52, blah, blah, blah. He won the lawsuit, by the way. And we didn't hear much about this. And there was no recall for the election or anything. I don't know. Maybe he didn't have anywhere near the votes. I don't know that much about it. But he won the lawsuit, which is really interesting. So we go on. Stacia Cardille, the other lady, concealed from Judge Wolf that she knew Amy Cohen and Michelle Tassinari. Cardille was invited to give a talk at NASED February 5th in 2021, the winter conference. On February 1st, Dr. Shiva was deplatformed by the infrastructure within 17 minutes of tweeting screenshot emails revealing Tassinari's violation of federal law. So, Stacia Cardille, that's the chief lawyer of Twitter. She concealed from Judge Wolf that she knew both Cohen and Michelle Tassinari. This is pretty heavy stuff. Okay, but according to Shiva's chart, these three ladies, especially these two, they're involved with organizations that go to a global scale. So notice they're at the Massachusetts local, so local to a degree. They're involved with a national scale. They're involved on a global scale. So this infrastructure is going way beyond Massachusetts and even the U.S. government. Again, here's NASED, and it's tied with the Homeland Security and CISA, which we would expect. But over here, we see the Global Engagement Center. And if you go to their website, this is really nefarious as well. The usual shibboleths, the usual woke nonsense that they talk about, but this is global. This is the United States intelligence and cyber intelligence. There's the cyber infrastructure, the cyber work on a global scale linked with the U.S. government. And here you see elections infrastructure, ISAC. This is supposed to guarantee good elections. And they're tied up with all these people, which is, again, this is what regulations do. I've talked about this a lot. Regulation equals control. And Twitter is right here as a partner. So that's great. Twitter is involved with all of this. And this is now coming totally out in the open. And remember, this chart was made 2 years ago. So this kind of reiterates the national and global interaction, right? The National Association of State Election Directors promotes accessible, accurate, and transparent elections in the United States and U.S. territories. But this is also part of the U.S. government. It's the Global Engagement Center. And they talk about the same thing. In the private sector sphere, GEC works, that's this, the Global Engagement Center. In the private sector sphere, GEC works closely with technology and social media companies to track disinformation trends and promote fact-based content, information integrity, and digital literacy. Really, where were they with the whole Wuhan lab being disinformation and Russian disinformation? Where were they with the Biden laptop? Where have they been with all of these events that have been occurring over the last 2 or 3 years that have now been proven to have been lies and disseminated through the internet and squashed in the internet? Where was this wonderful, what's it called again? Global Engagement Center. Additionally, GEC, Global Engagement Center, partners with industry leaders, no kidding, on testbed initiatives to subject new counter-disinformation tools to rigorous testing and simulation. Wow. In light of what we've just revealed, the fact that they're a part of this chart, the chart that Ayyadurai put together, it just, it reeks, right? It really does. So if you look at this chart more carefully, and again, I would advise you can go to Ayyadurai's website and see the whole chart, but you can see here that here's Omidyar, and he's directly related. This right here, this is his company. This is one of his NGOs. Here's these ladies, and they appear here, they're here, they're here, they're here. These two are almost everywhere. And of course, this is the lady at Twitter. And they completely squashed Ayyadurai, and you can see why now. It's not just for what he was revealing about Massachusetts. This is way bigger, if this is true. I have no way of proving this at this point, but everything that he has said was going on is now being absolutely revealed as true with the whole Elon Musk and Twitter phenomena. Since I began this dispatch, which was last week, the news of Elon Musk firing the FBI operative Jim Baker from Twitter just came out. It came out a few days ago. We'll have to see what else emerges. But so far, just last night, more things have emerged. All of them are collaborating exactly what Shiva said was in the making. Now, the large portal, that's not been proven yet. But that it goes beyond the DHS and the FBI is almost certain. Shiva Ayyudurai has written Musk and is hoping that Musk will follow through all the way. Redacted Inc. has also brought Shiva's revelations to Musk's attention. So let's see if he listens to them, what's revealed there. Because this implicates way more than just the DHS or the FBI. The chart implicates many U.S. government agencies, but also it ties into the larger globalist agenda. And none of this mentions, by the way, the World Economic Forum, which is very curious. In other words, is this another homegrown version of Klaus Schwab? Is he competing with Klaus Schwab? I don't know. But this ties, especially the Democratic Party and probably the neocons. What I've said is that the Democratic Party is no longer the Democratic Party of the United States of America. And that's obvious. They are now a branch, a huge branch of the globalist socialist agenda, which I am calling, and many others, global fascism. The Democratic Party does not work for America anymore. It hasn't for some time now. So let's get back to the initial question. How important is this? A collusion between the media and government is nothing new in and of itself. The issue is the intimacy and the immediacy. If electronically the government has practically set up shop in a business's back porch, they are on the threshold of moving into the building altogether. Once they're in a position to demand and expect for their request to be acted on, and immediately acted on, as they were. We're now discovering that. They were responded to immediately. Elon has already proved that. The platform is de facto owned, or at least run, by the government. Again, that term, an end run around the First Amendment. And here's a really interesting little tidbit. Mr. Salty, I've talked about Salty Cracker before. This is a crazy, he's out there on the edge. But he has an uncanny way of having insights that prove to be exactly correct way before anybody else. Salty may have been onto something when he noticed that none of the Twitter executives owned any stock in the company they were running. Now, how odd is that? You don't have faith in the very company you're running? But Salty theorized that the reason they didn't own any stock was because Twitter never made any money in the first place. His conclusion was that Twitter only survived on government payments. It was the government that actually ran Twitter. Is that going too far, perhaps? I don't know. Now, if Salty is right, that really opens up a can of worms, doesn't it? Remember, Twitter was a private company that could do as they pleased when they deplatformed President Trump. But what if it showed that actually the government was running Twitter? And remember, as we just saw on Carlson last night, Twitter fired over half of the employees with absolutely no effect on the performance. He cut out all that luxurious, ridiculous things that they were giving to the employees. So where was this money coming from if, in fact, Twitter really wasn't making any money anyways? It's a good question. If it's true, do you think Elon Musk will or could expose it? If it turns out to be true, that's going to be big. That's going to be huge. But something tells me there's a lot more lurking in the Twitter basement, regardless. But we're also seeing the possible seamless backdoor operations between the local, the national, and the global, as I mentioned. So is Twitter a nexus for a far more expansive operation? Not just the United States and the United States government. Okay, so let's take a look once more here. A little bit, let's go back to Mr. Almediar for a second. Let's recap the possibilities. Number one, Facebook and Twitter had weekly meetings with the FBI to discuss targeted censorship. It's not a big explosion. Could be bad, could be, a slap on the wrist. Twitter was never solvent and existed only as a secret government tool for censoring any information that would be detrimental to the democratic and neocons agenda. Now that gets pretty serious. Twitter and Facebook, via partner support portal, were directly integrated into the entire government surveillance system, hidden from public view. They were tools of the government. Our government surveillance agencies are also connected through a labyrinth of backdoor portals to the larger global fascist movement epitomized by the World Economic Forum, the EU, etc. Will I get to number 4? I kind of doubt that this particular attack or scandal, however you want to call the whole Twitter event, well, could it go as far as revealing that Twitter was completely a tool of the U.S. government that possibly didn't even make money on its own and was actually subsidized by the government? Because that really opens up a can of worms. At that point, it's treason, really. The government is now doing that end run around the First Amendment, but it's not a legitimate end run either, because now it can be argued that those companies are in fact the government. Legally, anyways, could it go that far? Let's see. So, Pierre Omidyar created the labyrinth of backdoor portals, according to Shiva. This entire system was created by Mr. Pierre Omidyar. His front-end dribble report via The Intercept was designed to prevent exposure of his deep involvement and, of course, the exposure of the entire digital labyrinth that he, Omidyar, constructed. So, is he capable of this? Well, he does have the economic means. What, $21 billion? You can do just about anything with that. He has the technological capabilities. He founded eBay. He himself is really good with software production and software design, coding, everything. And he definitely has the ideological commitment, as we saw with this organization of his, this organization which ties ideology with technology, The Intercept as a convenient kind of disinformation format that he can do the dribble that Shiva accused him of. And of course, he owned eBay, which was not a small task. I mean, this guy knows how to do things. He knows how to make things happen. So could he have done this? Could he have constructed this entire system? I don't know, but he certainly had the withdrawal. When I say could, I'm saying he definitely could have. Did he is the real question. So that brings us here. If it's true, then Elon Musk might be in a position to expose Omidyar before the entire world as he continues to release the Twitter materials. Are we going to possibly witness a major clash of titans? Could Elon Musk survive such a clash? I mean, Omidyar has massive amount of support, massive amount of allies. The Democratic Party, the government, the globalists. Elon does not have those people on his side. He's got us, but other than he's the richest man in the world, and they're going after him, as we've seen. Everybody's going to go after him. Could he survive a clash between him and Omidyar? Because it's not really against just him and Omidyar. And this, of course, is by far more the truth. But remember what Caitlyn Jenner publicly warned Elon about. Elon is making child pornography and exploitation, the global pedophile ring, a #1 issue. And we now know it's looking pretty global. So he will incur attacks from both fronts. The global fascists, as epitomized by the World Economic Forum, and the global pedophile ring that resulted in the Epstein being Epsteined. In fact, Elon has already made references that he won't be Epsteined in case anything should happen. So he's aware. Elon Musk has cojones, but he has vision and he's capable. Elon Musk is going to go down as one of the great men of the 21st century, whether he survives this next episode or not. And I hope he does. I'm completely behind him. Many of us are, and I hope you are too. He's going to need a lot of support because it's basically at this point Elon against much of the world.